This is the week ahead. We're doing this live. I am doing this also from my home straight to yours. This show showcases some of the key items that will take place next week, or the items that we speculate might happen to take place next week. And perhaps some of these items can help you chart your day moving forward. We start with the biggest news of the day around 4:30 p.m. Sunday. The Prime Minister unveiled several easing of restrictions for people that have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Tan Sri Muhyiddin said that the new rules will take effect on August 10th, on Tuesday. He says that the details of the measures will be announced in the near future, but Tan Sri Muhyiddin said that the further easing for the economic sector will be announced soon as well. The fully vaccinated must show their digital vaccination certificate as proof if required. There's also what defines you to be fully vaccinated. Here is the Prime Minister speaking on the issue.
Penting untuk dijelaskan bahawa seseorang individu hanya akan diiktiraf sebagai individu yang telah lengkap vaksinasinya apabila telah memenuhi kriteria berikut. A ialah bagi jenis vaksin yang memerlukan 2 dos suntikan, Pfizer, AstraZeneca dan Sinovac. Individu berkenaan mestilah telah melepasi hari ke-14 daripada tarikh suntikan dos kedua itu. Dan B, bagi jenis vaksin yang hanya memerlukan 1 dos suntikan, iaitu Johnson & Johnson dan CanSino, individu berkenaan mestilah telah menepasi hari ke-28 dari tarikh suntikan. Saya telah pun mengarahkan Yang Berhormat Menteri Dalam Negeri sebagai pengurusi Jawatankuasa Koordinasi Penguatkuasaan dan Pematuhan SOP COVID-19 memastikan kementerian-kementerian dan agensi yang bertanggungjawab untuk mempergiatkan aktiviti penguatkuasaan dan pemantauan ke atas kemudahan-kemudahan yang diberikan. Kerajaan tidak akan teragak-agak untuk menarik semula kemudahan-kemudahan yang telah diberikan sekiranya berlakunya ketidakpatuhan terhadap garis panduan serta SOP yang telah ditetapkan. Jika berlakunya jangkitan di premis yang menikmati kemudahan-kemudahan ini, Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia terutamanya akan segera mengambil langkah sewajarnya termasuk melakukan penilaian semula risiko serta tidak menolak kemungkinan menutup serta-merta premis atau kawasan yang terlibat selain mengeluarkan kompaun kepada pihak yang dikenal pasti melanggar SOP.
So as you can see, there's a lot of items when it comes to the measures that is being introduced. I just want to go on the record saying that this might be a premature move. I don't think this would be suitable right now when cases are, 18,000, 19,000. But at the same time, Klang Valley doesn't look the rest like Malaysia. Some states are moving on to second phase, third phase. So I understand why the government is taking this measure that can be implemented elsewhere. Having said that, some of the measures for the fully vaccinated that was announced does allow for overseas travelers returning to Malaysia, but they may be quarantined at home. They must have a home in Malaysia. The measures also include long-distance spouses, husband and wife or other partners living apart. They may travel interstate and intrastate to see each other. Parents may also travel interstate and intrastate to see their children under the age of 18. This is perhaps for the children currently holed up with their grandparents or at boarding schools, or whatever that may be. And of course, the government also allows for places of worship to open subject to plenty of precautions. Here is the Prime Minister again on the topic.
Pengembara warga negara dan bukan warga negara yang mempunyai kediaman di Malaysia, termasuklah PR dan Malaysia My Second Home yang pulang ataupun tiba dari luar negara dan telah mendapat vaksin dos lengkap, dibenarkan untuk menjalani kuarantin wajib di rumah saja dan diberikan perintah pengawasan dan pemerhatian di rumah atau HCO digital. Kedua, pasangan suami isteri jarak jauh. Suami isteri jarak jauh yang telah mendapat vaksin dos lengkap dibenarkan rentas daerah ataupun negeri untuk bertemu pasangan masing-masing. Alhamdulillah. Ketiga pula, ibu bapa yang telah mendapat vaksin dos lengkap dibenarkan merentas daerah dan negeri untuk berjumpa anak di bawah umur 18 tahun.
Meanwhile, the chief economist at KESO, Associate Professor Yusuf Sa'ari, says that the freedom of movement may be problematic to execute, but at the same time, there's some striking of balance that needs to be achieved. Here is Yusuf Sa'ari on the topic.
Kita perlu mencari titik tengah, ya, titik tengah dalam keadaan ini, tetapi dalam masa yang sama bahawa ada trade off di situ. Maksudnya kalau kita ketatkan pergerakan ekonomi, kos pada ekonomi akan tinggi. Kalau kita kita longgarkan ekonomi, mungkin ada sedikit ada kesan pada kesihatan, tapi kita kena ingat bahawa ekonomi kesannya membawa malapetaka jangka masa panjang. Saya adalah salah seorang 2-3 minggu lepas adalah pesakit positif COVID-19 yang tidak bergejala. Saya kini telah pulih. Jadi ambil masa 2 minggu saya telah kembali pulih. Tetapi kalau kita terstut ekonomi, kalau orang ni, individu A ni hilang kerja hari ni, belum tentu 3 bulan akan datang dia akan dapat kerja dan pendapatan yang sama.
So as you can see, this is going to be the big thing for next week. How will you chart your movement ahead when it comes to the vaccine restriction and vaccine easing of measures for those fully vaccinated? This is going to be a big deal for you. Let us know how you plan to move ahead. Use the hashtag AWANI News on Instagram, on Facebook, as well as on Twitter. We'll be sure to read them. The third story is, of course, the Olympics. We've seen how the Olympics ceremony closed. And it closed as strange as it opened. The stadium was empty, and the Japanese Olympic Committee passed over the baton to Paris 2024. I don't know whether the Paris Olympics in 3 years' time is going to suffer the same fate as Tokyo Olympic, but of course that is done. But the highlight of the story is, of course, our national track cyclist Azizul Hasni Awang. Dato' Azizul Hasni has won the silver medal for the men's skiing at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. I didn't see it live. I saw some of the videos after he won. It was just spectacular. And many thanks to the supporters of Malaysia for cheering him on. But having said that, Azizul Hasni clinched Malaysia's second medal at this Olympic after the badminton pair of Aaron Chia and So Wee Yik won bronze in their respective doubles category men's. Jason Kenny of Great Britain won the gold medal, as well as at the Izu Velodrome in Shizuoka today. Of course, this is the fourth straight Olympic outing for Azizul Hasni since the 2008 Beijing edition. The Prime Minister has some congratulatory note to share with the public.
Saya juga nak menyatakan rasa bangga kerana apapun bagi kami, you hero lah, Dato' Azizul Hasni. Walaupun saya mengikuti daripada jauh, tapi saya faham tentang ini kerana saya pernah jadi Menteri Belia dan Sukan. So you are the real, orang kata, champion for us in Malaysia. Jadi saya sekali lagi nak ucapkan tahniah dan terima kasih pada segala pengorbanan Azizul dan rakan-rakan lain, tim bekerja kuat. Bagi kita yang ada di Kuala Lumpur ni, kita memang menunggu saat-saat yang kita nak nanti inilah. Tapi apapun, ini satu pencapaian yang cukup membanggakan. Of course, the next Olympic, I pray that we should get the first gold for Malaysia. And it must come from Kirin, insyaAllah, ya.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good call to action. We still haven't won our first Olympic gold. Philippines have won their first Olympic gold. Indonesia have won their first Olympic gold in this Olympics. And of course, previously, Singapore has won through schooling, the swimming competition. So we are still starved of our first gold medal, but that doesn't discount all the efforts that have been taken by Malaysian athletes. We're all proud of you. to no end. So we're looking forward to everybody's safe return back to Malaysia. But now we turn our attention to our fourth story for the evening. And of course, this is a big one because we're back to politics. The Registrar of Societies earlier on in the week, last week, said that the decision by UMNO to postpone its party elections by up to 18 months is invalid. It has ordered the party to set a new date for the Supreme Council elections as soon as possible. They don't mention the kind of penalty that will take place if they don't do it, but yeah, it's a big deal. So here's a little story on UMNO.
In a letter to UMNO, ROS Director General Jasri Kasim said the postponement was not legitimate as the term for Supreme Council members elected in 2018 had ended on June 30th. He added that ROS's decision was based on meeting minutes from a Supreme Council meeting on July 7th after its term ended, where it decided to postpone the party polls at all levels. On June 25th, UMNO Deputy President Datuk Sri Muhammad Hassan said the party would be postponing its elections for up to 18 months in line with its constitution. This, he said, was due to the current COVID-19 situation after consulting the Health Ministry and the National Security Council, adding that the party had informed ROS.
So the AWANI Tonight team put together a conversation with political analyst Professor Dr. Kartini Khalid explaining the role of the ROS in making such a decision. And the answer that Dr. Kartini needs to untangle is how will ROS's decision disrupt UMNO as a party? Here is Dr. Kartini.
It is fair to say that the ROS does not have the power to amend, revise or add anything to UMNO's constitution. If anything, it only has the power to enforce it. UMNO can always request for extension from ROS, but unable to comply to ROS requirement since April 20th made UMNO an illegal political party. Therefore, once it is illegal, every action and position is no longer valid.
So how does this change the political landscape in the lead up to the much anticipated confidence vote in September? Dr. Kartini expands.
Going back to what Ismail Sabri's reaction to support Tan Sri Muhyiddin in carrying his duty as Deputy Prime Minister, it is really a good obligation. And the entire 31 MPs that hold their duty as representative to keep people's need and safety first must be recognized. I think here Zahid has to differentiate, should be able to differentiate between MP's duty, which is really binding with the law, and be able to differentiate with the party interest, UMNO interest. In this case, defying Zahid to oblige the duty as MP is not breaking any law, except morally looking at Zahid, whom I think the members of the UMNO is now questioning the integrity of Zahid as the president.
Dr. Kartini added that currently there is an unclear majority on both sides and that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong will be referred to as a final solution to maintain order within this political bickering.
Well, it is already an unclear majority in the parliament. That is why the quest for power keeps threatening the executive level. UMNO MPs in the parliament are 38 altogether. If 31 MPs of BN are clearly with Perikatan Nasional, UMNO has less than 8 people supporting him. If we carefully analyze, the remaining 8 are the court cluster, most of them. So I could assume that more effort will be clear on how to carry out the National Recovery Plan in the next month. If the executive power is still unsettled, the constitutional monarchy will be referred to as a solution to maintain order, meaning that vote of confidence will retain Perikatan Nasional. If there is an issue, I think the answer will be going back to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, where the process to appoint an interim prime minister will definitely follow the constitution.
So next week, keep a close eye on UMNO. There's further developments there. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the lockdown. This is the week ahead. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. We're doing this live. We want to cover some of the big news of the week that might be of interest to you so that you can plan your week ahead better. From local, we move to international. More countries are extending the COVID-19 restrictions to curb the spread of the Delta variant. South Korea is among the latest country to do so. Prime Minister Kim Bo-geum has extended curbs for 2 weeks, which he said is crucial to stamp out cases and ensure a safe reopening of schools.
Seoul and surrounding regions have banned private gatherings of more than 2 people after 6 p.m., while any gatherings of more than 4 people are prohibited nationwide. The number of severe COVID-19 cases in South Korea has doubled in 3 weeks. Majority of patients, authorities said, were the young and unvaccinated. Meanwhile, Vietnam's capital Hanoi will extend COVID restrictions until August 22nd after new clusters of infections were detected in the city of more than 8 million people. Hanoi has in the past 2 weeks ordered people to stay at home and banned all non-essential activities, but a threefold rise in infections has prompted tougher measures. In the Philippines, thousands of people crammed into COVID vaccination centers in the capital Manila after false news spread that unvaccinated residents would be deprived of cash aid and barred from leaving home during a 2-week lockdown starting today. Manila and 3 other regions are under lockdown until August 15th. An 8-hour curfew is imposed in Manila starting 8 p.m., with only essential businesses and workers allowed to operate for the next 2 weeks.
Also on international affairs, Rodrigo Duterte's party has endorsed him to be the vice presidential candidate in next year's election, paving the way for him to stay in power for 6 more years after he steps down next year.
The move needs to be approved by the Party General Assembly, which meets next month. In the Philippines, the president is limited to 1 6-year term. Duterte's term ends in June next year, but he said he is thinking about running for vice president, which political observers and critics say could be a backdoor to the presidency. Next year's elections will be a referendum on Duterte's policies, including his war on drugs, in which thousands of people have been killed, and the handling of the pandemic.
All right, one more break. When we come back, we'll talk about the most famous drug in Malaysia right now, ivermectin. We'll be right back after these messages. So last week and the week before that, ivermectin was discussed extensively in the parliament, outside the parliament, on WhatsApp group and many other places. And it's because of this, ivermectin is expected to continue to dominate some of our conversation circles next week. The AWANI Tonight team has put together a conversation with Professor Dr. Sharifah to actually discuss the science behind ivermectin. This is Prof. Sharifah, as organized by AWANI Tonight.
So a lot of studies have said that, ivermectin can also be used to treat COVID. Now, the issue is that a lot of these studies are inconclusive. That means it's not really matched. Some of them are using different dosing. Some of them are using different severity levels. And, certain others are using different population and so on. So the issue is that we need to have a standardized, so-called a randomized control trial. This is where the best so-called power of study is. So some of the randomized control trials are available, but again, some of them are again inconclusive. Some of them, a lot of them has actually shown that it works, but some of the so-called the world organization, so things like WHO, even US FDA and things like that, have not really approved it for human consumptions in the sense that we're going to treat it for COVID.
Health Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Adam Baber said that clinical studies have been initiated at 18 government hospitals. A total of 500 high-risk and mildly symptomatic COVID-19 patients are involved in the trial to determine the safety and efficacy of the drug to treat COVID-19 patients. He added that the results of these trials would be available in September. The ministry has also clarified that as of now, ivermectin is only allowed to be used on an off-label basis.
You can use it under off-label medication in Ministry of Health, but the patients cannot actually demand it from the doctors saying that, oh, I'm admitted for COVID, I want you to treat me with ivermectin. We cannot do that. It depends very much on the doctor's purview. So at the moment, this is where the debate still is. We have to look at a few more studies, but I do agree that some of the studies are actually looks very promising. And I know a lot of doctors as well are actually trying to push this drug so that it can be dispensed for a lot of people. But we cannot just say that we can do that without proper trials and without proper guidance, because that will be irresponsible for the government to do that.
So with ivermectin yet to gain clinical approval for human use, Dr. Sharifah urged for the public to trust evidence-based information on the drug usage and for the authorities to approve it. Here she is talking about the matter.
We have to follow evidence-based medicine, or basically we have to follow what trials have shown, results from other studies and things like that. We cannot just say a few anecdotal evidence and say, oh, it's good enough for us. We have to be very careful. So in that sense, I have to really tell our public to be very wary about all this information, and please follow the latest development. And I do agree that if this is good and we have enough evidence to say that it does, I do urge the government to actually propose this as one of the treatment for COVID. We cannot deny this, since this is very cost effective, it's very cheap, it is relatively safe, but we don't have enough evidence yet. We have to wait for a while until we get more data, and later on maybe we can actually put this into one of our essential medicine for COVID as well. So there's pros and cons for everything. So I would say that take it with a pinch of salt. Do not be too dependent on ivermectin. It comes with side effects as well. So please follow the latest available so-called review.
So yeah, just use science and don't trust your WhatsApp group conversations. I think that's the key point here. Even my own mother, I've been telling her to, look at the NPRA messages, KKM messages, stick to the science. But yeah, like I said, it will be dominating next week's conversation. However, that is all that we have for this episode of The Week Ahead. My name is Ibrahim Sani, and I hate to repeat myself, but yes, have a good week ahead.